Willis does it again. She botched 2 charges, and Trump's attorney, Steve Sadow, says they have to be dismissed. They have to go. Why? Wrong jurisdiction. Fani is saying that these allegations that involve federal courts should be brought in Fulton County, in her jurisdiction, but with allegedly federal victims. So that means they go to federal court. So why did she charge them in her RICO indictment? Well, because she's incompetent. Probably too busy thinking about Nathan's hot dog. So we've got 2 counts that we're talking about. What are they? You see, count 15 is one of them. And let's point these out before we jump into Steve Sadow's motions. He says, okay, count 15, bunch of people got charged with this. You see, it is Trump, Giuliani, Eastman, Chesebro, Stallings, Cheely, and the others, all indicted because they say on December 6, 2020, they filed a certificate of the votes of 2020 electors in a court, right? So what court were they in? Oh, let's see. They, all defendants in count 14, acting as co-conspirators, they mailed it to a federal district court right there, Northern District of Georgia. And that mailing was an overt act. And so this all was going to a federal court. The fraudulent documents went to the feds. Same thing happened here in count 27. Same type of charge. We zoom in on this one. Filing false documents. Where did those documents go? Oh yeah. Trump versus Kemp, case 1-20 CV, whatever. District Court, Northern District of Georgia. So they submitted this document. Fani said that's illegal. Steve Sadow says, you're in the wrong jurisdiction, lady. That's a federal crime. If you want to charge that, make it federal. Okay. But the feds have not charged it because guess what? It's not a crime. But here is what has been submitted from Trump's defense attorney in Georgia. You know who he is. Steve Sadow, joined by Jennifer Little, all submitting this into Judge Scott McAfee, who didn't have what it takes to make a just decision with the Fani Willis disqualification. But here he has an opportunity to dismiss 2 charges, counts 15 and 27, based on this case. Saying, all right, Judge McAfee, nice to see you again here. Says President Trump takes this opportunity that's been provided by this court to concisely state why this case called Lonnie requires that these 2 charges be dismissed. Why? Well, those counts cannot stand because the state of Georgia lacks the authority to criminalize conduct under a state statute here. This law in Georgia involves conduct that's directed at a federal forum, which of course are the federal courts, like we just saw, Northern District of Georgia. But Lonnie, this case decided that a state cannot prosecute a crime. In that case, it was about a perjury crime under a state statute when the only alleged conduct only constitutes an offense against the public justice of the United States within the exclusive jurisdictions of the courts of the United States. Okay, so it involves the courts, not Georgia at all. So consequently, the state of Georgia cannot punish the filing of a false document, allegedly, in federal court. It says it's not your court, as the power to do so belongs solely to the federal government. Makes sense, right? If they're upset about this, why don't they bring charges? Maybe Jack Smith will. Count 15 alleges a conspiracy to file, and count 27 alleges the actual filing of the false documents. And where the documents go? Northern District of Georgia. They are not in a public record or the court of the state of Georgia. It's all going to the feds entirely. And so according to the rationale underlying this case, because the conduct charge in both courts actually indirectly impacts the federal judiciary of the U.S., it contravenes allegedly federal law, not state criminal law. Sorry, Big Fani. Thus, it cannot be prosecuted in a state court under a state criminal statute. This holds true even though this law on its face attempts to assert concurrent criminal jurisdiction. We both can have it. No. Under Lonnie, such jurisdiction cannot exist. Sorry. Stated simply under that case, the state has no jurisdiction or authority to enforce federal criminal law, which is precisely what Big Fani is attempting to do in these counts. And so those counts must be dismissed. Now, we know this works because this is the same principle that was applied in other cases, Ross versus State, which cited this case. In granting, in that case, the defendant's motion to quash, the Georgia Supreme Court in Ross made clear that if the offense charged in the indictment contained in the record was an offense against the public justice of the United States, and it was an offense against the public justice of this state, then our court has no jurisdiction to try it. So this again is reinforced by another case, Steve Sadow dropping cases. Here, you want another one? Here's another one, which prohibited a prosecution under an ambiguous California statute. California said you can't provide false documents in connection with federal immigration investigations. But in so holding, the Hassan court noted that several federal laws potentially criminalize this in connection with the investigation, which said, the appellate court said, the state can't go after it then, okay? If the manifest purpose is to protect the integrity of the state, right? The state law is to protect the state, not the feds. So it goes to the feds. Our case is no different. Using, which necessarily includes filing false documents in the jurisdiction of the judiciary of the United States, is a federal crime. It's right here. U.S. Code 18-1001-8A3 is the statute, 18 U.S. Code. This statute is designed to protect the federal interest against false documents being used in connection with the courts. File a false document with the feds, boom, 18 U.S. Code. Now, the alleged conduct which the state is attempting to prosecute by Big Fani is addressed by the federal false statement statute, and thus jurisdiction is exclusively vested with the feds. Sorry. Now, as such, the state is without jurisdiction or authority to prosecute President Trump when the plain purpose of doing so is to protect the integrity of federal matters. The state statute at issue here reaches too far, and it may not be applied to criminalize the conduct alleged in counts 15 and 27, and so those counts must be dismissed. Signed by Steve Sadow, and it seems like a pretty good argument to me. Fani doesn't have the jurisdiction over cases that are only pointing to federal harm, federal misconduct, and alleged misconduct. And Fani, I think, will respond, and she'll say, these other authorities do give us concurrent jurisdiction. In this case, the feds have not charged that. They'll say because maybe the feds don't, have capabilities to charge, whatever. And so she'll turn it back over to Scott McAfee. Scott McAfee, if his pattern of prior rulings is any guide, he'll probably not do a dang thing about this one either. But of course, very interesting ruling. And a lot of this is just being lodged in now for appeals, looking very unlikely that this case is going to go to trial, at least before the election. And we'll see what happens from there. So another Fani failure, botching 2 charges because, she doesn't have jurisdiction over them. Probably she was busy wandering around Napa Valley. Should have been doing some legal work. But we're going to be here continuing to cover this case and the rest of the Trump trials and litigation happening all over our country, unfortunately. And so we appreciate you subscribing and joining us as we do. Thank you for hitting the like button. Thank you for inviting a friend or family member, someone you know or love, to come over here, check out our channel so they can see what is going on here behind the scenes. We got some great links down in the description below. WatchingTheWatchers.locals.com, our members only community. We'd love to have you join us over there. WatchingTheWatchers.locals.com. We'll see you over there and back here on the next one.